Before getting into whatever this video is, there's a correction I need to make, and on top of that, provide some newer information that I've, found out pertaining to evidence for something. In the last video I uploaded, Exploring the Viz Part 7, and as well as Exploring the Viz Part 6, wherein I actually went to said place, I discussed the abandoned former livestock storage settlement that's here in the city called Farm J.C. Chapai. Another correction I should make as well. Just learned that how you typically in Quebecois French say farm is not ferma, it's ferme. So there's another thing. When I discussed the history of the abandoned site, I said that after the 1890s, all the way up until around 2021, it had remained abandoned, completely unused, for an entire century, pretty much. Except for in terms of when the federal government seized control of the land, to very clearly in some way have, obviously in collusion with Ultramar Gas Production Corporation and that Valero Oil Transport Corporation. I'd said that it had been abandoned all that time, even when initially the Canadian federal government had taken provisional control over it. Well, apparently I was incorrect on that. So from after the 1890s, it was abandoned as its initial purpose as a livestock storage place for incoming cargo ships along this area of the South Shore. Then, from 1914 to around 1951, I believe it was, or at least the early 1950s, it was reopened as a livestock storage settlement, so it didn't sit abandoned, though there was less activity there than previously. And in the time of the 1950s, it then went under control, so this was also correct, of the federal government at that time, and they continued to use it. Oh, wait, no. Okay, no, never mind. Sorry, they continued to, from 1914 to 1982, they continued to use it as a livestock storage settlement for testing for pathogens in the animals. But it was in the early 1950s that it came under control of the federal government, and prior to that, it might have, couldn't find information on this, it might have been under control of the provincial government of Quebec, or it might have been privatized. It might have been a private organization or a specific family that had control over it. Then in 1982, operations were shifted from being a livestock storage center, from the newer information that I could find, though there's not much of it, and it's interesting that this didn't come up the first time I tried doing online searching into Farm J.C. Chapai, that from 1982 to 2014, it was registered, at least in terms of information given to the public and officiated operations, as an experimental farm, or at least in the early 1980s, it was going to be converted, the site, into a center for agricultural experimentation in terms of, well, from my guess, crops, but there was no specifics, again, that I could find online. But so officially, it was regarded from the early 1980s to the early to mid 2010s as, oh wait, no, wait a minute, no, it 14 or no, yeah, to 2014, it was regarded as an experimental site for agriculture. So that's the information that I had incorrect. So it was seized by the federal government in the 1950s, but it didn't lay abandoned for nearly a century, though activity for livestock containment was less than when it was originally set up in the mid 1800s, and then operated until the late. And then in the 1980s, shifting purposes of the area's usage. And still, conveniently enough, in regards to it being recognized as an experimental site, there's still absolutely there's barely any public information about it that can be searched up, other than the fact that it was just used as a site for agricultural experimentation. Then in 2014, it closed down. It was officially abandoned by the federal government, though the land still being under their control. And in that, well, no doubt I don't doubt that the Federal Agricultural Ministry had influence over the land longer than 2021, but in 2021, around 3 years ago, officially being transferred provisional control into the hands of Agri-Food Canada, the research division, a research division of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. I also don't doubt that specifically that research division, has been in operation there in conjunction with whatever other sectors of the agricultural ministry long before it was officially handed over control. Which, if you saw my last video, okay, want more information, go watch that video, and the one before it, when I actually went to the site. So one, it being actually officially recognized as an experimental farm for all those years gives an explanation to the fact of the newer electrical units and structural facilities that were there, though now decaying, newer than the 1950s, 60s, 70s, or 80s. Looking maybe at the latest, the early 2000s. And my running theory is that there were secretive tests done there for harsh chemical crop pesticides, which also the fact that it was actually recognized as an experimental area for testing things relating to agroeconomics, that actually gives more credence to my suspicions. And also the fact that looking back in the footage of Exploring the Viz Part 6, though possibly an amount that could have just been done as a deterrent, or I thought that maybe initially signage on the building structure could have been placed as just a trespassing deterrent, the whole danger, beware, possible pulmonary health contaminants, damage to respiratory function in the area. Well, one of the signs literally just outright said, one of the buildings towards Ultramar's pipeline, beware harmful pesticide products inside, or exposure to, the sign was obviously in Quebecois French, but even I could make out that that's what it said. It's the only sign that I saw on there that directly referenced pesticides. All the rest that I saw, to my recollection, just said danger, respiratory damage. But again, oddly specific. It was already oddly specific with the respiratory damage signage, if it was just a trespassing deterrent, but that's even more specific. So I just wanted to say that. Hold on. This video was going to be something entirely different. What it was going to be was a reflection on a retrospective, from my point of view and my research observations of the COVID-19 pandemic in the world. Specifically, it was going to be about how opinions of mine on the entire global crisis have changed. How I regret ideals of mine that have altered, and very, looking back, obvious information that was out there that was silenced, censored. How my views on the situation have changed, my regrets to my contributions to certain actions societally during the pandemic, and just a history of the entire thing, and this video was going to be titled something along the lines of the COVID-19 pandemic in retrospective, a deadly virus for some or certain people, co-opted for and created by profit gain. And before any of you go making any sort of assumptions or accusations, why don't you damn well wait until the fucking thing, if the fucking video is released in the future, before you make an opinion. No, I am not an anti-vaxxer or an anti-masker now. Well, in essence, as far as I'm concerned, but of course there are those of you who will think so. Once again, it never goes as planned. I'm filming the video at night. It's dark. Well, actually, it's not completely dark yet. It's dusk. The sun just went down. I try to do so many friggin' things in a day. I think I can manage all of them. I can. Today has been horrible. Utterly horrible. And to most people, nothing major happened. I felt defeated today. Just defeated. I always feel like a failure. On everything. No matter what it is. So tired. Tired of having answers and playing catch up with everyone else. So tired of it. I'm so tired of so tired of people thinking that we're best friends because I was compassionate to them. I'm so tired of it. You know, here's something that I'll share that I haven't really talked about much yet. of it is, I've kind of gained a reputation for myself amongst those of the impoverished and homeless community, at the very least those within social work in relation to attempts at systemic aid. I've gained a bit of a reputation. For being the nomadic traveler guy. The guy who, or just the intellectual who's made these incredibly complex diagrams. I've shown them to people here, out and about. And yet so many people who are here, so fond of me, they know nothing about me. They don't know anything. Almost nothing at all. I've had in-depth conversations with maybe 3 of them. 3. Everyone, and I mean everyone, has to have advice. Everyone. And they don't even know me. They don't know what I do. They don't know what I've done. They don't know what I try to do even. They don't know anything. Oh, and oh my. Oh, and oh my. The colorism. The racism. Like most conversations that with the people who know me, that center around me, I'm an Anglophone. I'm an Anglophone because I speak English. And it's always how to better your fucking French. Even though now I have an application on my phone where I can actually just communicate with them. I've started telling people, like, no, you know what? I'll learn Quebecois French in my own time. I'll learn it on my own time. I'm going to start being more direct with people. Like, no. Either we're going to speak in I'm going to speak in metathesized Quebecois French. Yes, I try to. But if we can't comprehend each other, then we're going to have to resort to hand gestures. Or the fucking application. There's your solution.
really do feel that people only talk to me because. No, okay, let me paint you a picture, worldwide audience, who I am when I'm not on here. As far as I'm concerned, in terms of when I do talk, when you do get me going, which is rare. The exact same, just maybe more collected. Who I am is the guy who sits in the corner silently, doesn't talk, and broods and thinks and watches. That's it. That's who I am. You people are seeing the most exciting things I do when I'm not around other people. It's always No, you know what? No. No, it's not always myself who puts me in these situations. Like, I mean, that I do nothing and people come up and talk to me and they just put me in shit. I mean it. Because they can't stand the silence. They can't have those moments of quiet. They have to talk. They have to feel alive. It makes them feel alive. I'm tired of every path leading to the same outcome. I know why it happens. Somehow that's even worse. Coming up with the concepts of my theories really has been a double-edged sword. I was such euphoria when I came up with those ideas. It was so. There were moments that. It was one of those moments that was so. Invigorating and enlightening that. Where I can't even recall what happened. The exact moment that I realized them. I can't. Because my prefrontal cortex and hippocampus were so stimulated. The synapses all just lit up. They were so. Those cortexes were just so overpowered that memory recall, you can't remember the little details. All that led up to it. And then I made my first diagrams. And I began writing them. I put my thoughts to words, and oh my gosh, it was something that I had felt for years. No, it was something that, it was answers to things I had felt for years. Finally, just finally. That's what I felt like in Ottawa when I first began writing, just finally. How did I not piece these together before? Finally. And then I left Ottawa. After putting them out to the internet. And I saw more of the horrors of the world. I know how all this happens. I know why, I know how, but, here. Following in my practice of neo-Jungian psychology. The inner child in my subconscious doesn't know how. They don't. So I'm gonna use those words. How can people be so oblivious to things that are horribly wrong, that are right in front of them? Things that are right in fucking front of them. Does nobody notice or those who are cognizant enough to know a portion of it, no one really care? Does no one actually give a damn about methods that incite actual outcomes? People of the world are so obsessed. Everyone is so obsessed with making an impactful, a large gesture. The internet is a place full of large gestures that are either performative or unnecessary and overdramatic. Yet for those, the few that are genuine who want to incite change, look up from your fucking phone for once and notice that everybody is watching just the gestures. Just watching it. You don't realize that the real people around you, you're not doing what's on the screen. You're not doing it. You know, it's an interesting paradox. The only reason that I'm not gonna call them peaceful protests, because they're not peaceful. The far left, they're full of spite. I'll call them demonstration protests. Not violent, they're demonstration. They're not peaceful. The only reason the world, most average people actually know about those who engage in demonstration protests when the mass right-wing media decides to report on it, to keep the populace feeling as if a major threat is either underway or neoliberal fascists saying real change is happening, just so they could spin it towards another demonstration 2 months later for a different cause. any of you bother to actually realize that the only reason so many people know about your movement is because most people of the world aren't involved with it? They're not. They're watching it. They're not joining in. They're watching you. And then they talk. And the talk spreads. And then the corporate journalism spreads it further. Most of the world is just watching the so-called big events happening. They're not big, they're localized. The idea isn't localized, but those actions are localized. Then you have someone like me. Someone who tries. Tries to expose devastation within communities themselves. I don't mean commentary. I walk through the elitists, the ethnic supremacists, the sexuality degradators, the corporate lobbyists. I stand right outside their front doors. Or I walk to places where their chaos is. Where the damage has just been left on its way. I see it first hand. And no one cares. I know. I... There's nothing more I can say. I have so many days where I just think, why do I keep doing this? Not in a suicidal sense. Far past that. Why do I... Why don't I just go build a life for myself in a remote place? Because I need people. I hate them so much sometimes, but I need them. Like the rest of them do. Wanna know what happened today? I was... was sitting in a cafe in Old Town Levis. Pondering, as usual. I don't know what I did yesterday. I was sitting in a cafe. And all of a sudden, I get a call from MetCredit. For those of you who don't know what MetCredit is, well, I didn't know until yesterday. They are the largest private collections agency in the entirety of Canada. It was regarding a payment that was due to a company based in the greater Quebec City area called Dessercom. A payment initially of around $150, and well, it seems Met added extra $50 onto that. Now, I haven't talked about Dessercom Incorporated at all since being here. I should have been investigating them far more and for far longer ever since I found out who they were. Well, Dessercom, believe it or not, well, those of you who live in Quebec City and the Viz can believe it. Those of you who don't, they are a private ambulance operation service company. They are a moderate corporation from everything I can find. They only have 2 stationary locations, with one being here in the Viz, the other one being their headquarters in Quebec City. They are they're in conjoined operation, as far as I can tell, with the municipal ambulance dispatch services, the units of Quebec City, the ones there are, and they are the only ambulance dispatch service for all of the Viz.
And yes, to reiterate, I said private. As in, not a part of the Municipal Ministry of Health, or even the Provincial Ministry of Health. So you're probably wondering, why did I owe them money? Do you remember back to my very first video here in the Viz, when I titled Made It to the Viz when I first got here? You recall I had been bitten by a Decky's brown snake on the finger, and through further explanations, I decided to go to the hospital, the only one that Dessercom has provisions to drop people at. I wonder why. In the Desjardins district. The ride cost around, I later found out, $150. I found that out because it got mailed to a different place, people I know, and they offered to pay it for me. They wanted to, and I wasn't going to argue with them on it. So they said they would, and then later on they said we couldn't exactly figure out how to, and I said just forget about it. Most likely they'll forget about it, right? As is happens sometimes for things that I have not paid for. And as far as I'm concerned, I have no moral problem with. As I did not maliciously steal anything. I haven't maliciously stolen it. That was after they exhausted other options. I had neglected to recall the fact that I had given them my banking information. I should have found that a bit strange during the ride. A few times I've been to a hospital here in Quebec. It's done whilst there. For being out of province if I was to pay a certain fee, which I have at times. And so things were silent, but apparently Dessercom was adamant, because they are a private organization. They had been sending these people letters for months, apparently. They didn't tell me, which I really wish they would have. And so, clearly they have good affiliations with and use the services of MedCredit Collections. Interesting they don't use a more Quebec-based agencies. There are large ones in Canada that are based here. And that's what happened yesterday. And to be aware, the debt has been paid. Me and the people who were originally going to pay it for me, we ended up sending over the money, finally. And that was so defeating. It's just another reminder of being, no matter what I try to do to not abide by oppressive systems, being stuck, still functioning in them. That especially. I would have loved to ignore MedCredit's calls, have them come looking for me. Or heck, well, it would have had the ability to shut off access to my bank accounts, most likely. If it weren't for getting these people involved with it, as it absolutely would have, and the fact that I need my phone plan right now for my YouTube channel, and my Pornhub channel, for me to actually have access to it, to them, I wouldn't have paid them. And no matter what, for those of you who are in disbelief that
a company like Dessercom exists in Canada, I will believe it. I'll showcase it in my next and what will be, spoiler alert, my final part of exploring the Viz. It wasn't going to be. Now it will be. I'll showcase their 2 buildings they have here. Well, their dispatch center and their charity foundation building that funds the hospital in Old Town and is absolutely by no means a coincidence that they're placed right outside of it and that they fund it. That is not. Let me make something clear. I was not charged because I was from out of province, registered as being from out of province. I was charged because I used their services, as would anyone else from natively from Lévis or Quebec City would have been charged for utilizing their services. That is not universal health care. That is not so-called universal health care, but in actuality it's not universal health care because we pay it back through taxations to government spending. No. Whether you want to believe it or not, that is privatized healthcare within Canada. That is. It's a private company. Dessercom Incorporated. And they're looking to expand outside of the GQCA. Further into the Chaudière-Appalaches region. Plans apparently of having a placement for a station down by what was it, Loch Magnetic? Well, somewhere around there.
those of you thinking, oh, how can they legally do that? I thought if private healthcare wasn't allowed in Canada. There's no legal restrictions against providing certain services that are in conjunction with provincial health operations or municipal health operations. There is no law that's in the complex wording of legislature that's purposely distorted. Well, there's technically no restrictions to founding a corporation based on those services. But I had a little fun purposely with it. I transferred the money to MedCredit. But they were demanding $191.26. Just for a little bit of fun, I sent them $191.25. There is no 1 cent anymore in Canada. If it was above 3 cents, it would have to be rounded up to 5, a nickel. Kinda wish I had just done 191.24. But according to my messages, they accepted it. They accepted the payment. So there's a slight bit of compensation screwing with a giant collections agency. Barely at all. I'm sure they don't care. Oh, clearly not. They accepted it. It was another blow to my moral values. I'm so tired of feeling knowing that my efforts have only a minor effect on the larger corruption.
is minor. That's valid. I still believe that. I won't stop believing that, but I need to vent this.
I'm gonna end this video by saying this. The majority of the leftist content creators online. It really doesn't matter if you're right about what you're saying. Most of you make enacting it sound far easier than it actually is. This world is systematically designed to make you feel inferior. No matter who you are. Interpersonally and societally. I was going to film 2 more parts of Exploring the Viz. That's changed. There's only going to be 1 more part. That part won't be uploaded until I get into Quebec City finally. I've had enough time in this wretched place. It's not going to be any better over there. But, well, I need some slightly different atrocities to stare at. I'm alright. Well, I'm not alright, but I'm going on. As always and forevermore.